The millionaire was putting up posters on the street, desperate for the slightest clue about his missing son, when a little girl approached slowly, staring at the photo like she'd seen a ghost. "Sir, that boy lives in my house," she said in a low voice. What the man would discover next would make his entire world collapse in an instant. Henry had always been the kind of man who seemed to have the world in his hands. An empire built with sweat and ambition, companies featured in magazines, luxury trips, a mansion that exuded power. But all that turned to dust the moment Lucas, his only son, vanished without a sound, without a trace, without a goodbye. 1 year, 365 days of hell. Since then, the millionaire became a broken man, a body that walked while his soul dragged behind. What's the point of gold when what I love has turned to wind? He asked himself every morning, staring at the boy's empty bed. The echo of silence followed him like an endless sentence. That morning, the sun seemed to mock him, peeking between the skyscrapers as if the world were still intact. Henry put on the same wrinkled jacket as always, the one that had lost the scent of expensive cologne and now smelled of exhaustion. In the back seat of the car, dozens of folded posters, each with the smiling face of the child he was searching for. "Today I'll go further," he murmured, starting the engine with a knot in his chest. He drove toward the neighborhoods where the streets were narrow, the walls peeling, and life seemed harsher. There, no one recognized him. There, the millionaire was just a ruined father. The pothole-filled asphalt made the car shake, and he tasted the bitter flavor of defeat when he got out with the bundle of posters in hand. He walked slowly, stumbling over his own memories. Each dirty wall seemed to mock his impotence. He stopped in front of a rusted pole, took a deep breath, and stuck another sheet. The tape didn't stick well, and he tried to straighten it like someone trying to fix their own life. "Please, someone must know about you, my son," he whispered. His hands trembled, and the sound of the tape tearing mixed with the murmur of the trees. In that instant, he seemed as alone as the wind around him. Suddenly, a curious little voice rang out behind him. "Sir, that boy lives in my house." Henry froze. His heart, which until then had beaten wearily, seemed to leap in his chest. He turned slowly and saw a girl standing on the sidewalk, barefoot, in a worn dress, with eyes too big for her age. What did you say?" he asked with a broken voice. The little one pointed to the poster with her tiny finger and added with disarming sweetness, "That boy lives with my mom and me." Henry felt the ground slip away beneath his feet. For a moment, he thought he was hallucinating. He knelt in front of the girl, trying to contain the tremor in his hands. "Are you sure about that? This boy right here?" His voice was a mix of desperation and hope. The girl nodded without hesitation, her eyes fixed on the poster. "Yes, sir. He's quiet. He draws a lot and cries at night. Sometimes he talks in his sleep. He calls someone by a name." Henry held his breath. "What name?" he asked, almost voiceless. "Dad." The girl replied innocently, not understanding the weight of that word. Time stopped. Henry took a step back as if he'd been punched in the chest. Images of Lucas playing in the backyard, drawings on the walls, laughter filling the hallways, all came flooding back. "Oh my God," he murmured, bringing his hands to his head. "Do you live far from here?" he asked, trying to hold back the tears. "No, it's right around the corner," she smiled shyly, like someone revealing a secret. Henry didn't know whether to believe her, run, or collapse right there. The world spun around that girl who looked at him with tenderness and truth. He took a deep breath and ran his hand through his disheveled hair. "Can you take me there?" he asked with a trembling voice. The girl frowned thoughtfully and replied, "I can, but my mom might get mad." Henry leaned in, his eyes full of tears. "Don't worry, I just want to see if it's him, nothing more." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded, her gaze reflecting an innocent bravery that moved him deeply. As she started walking, the wind moved the newly stuck poster. Lucas's face smiled under the faint glow of the light. For the first time in a long time, Henry felt hope breathing again. The little Amelia walked ahead, barefoot, with light and firm steps, while Henry followed a few feet behind, dominated by a mix of fear and hope. His heart beat like a runaway drum. Each beat seemed to echo in the quiet alleys of that forgotten Brooklyn neighborhood. The houses were humble, with cracked walls and makeshift gates. In the distance, dogs barked, and the smell of cheap takeout escaped through the windows. Henry, accustomed to marble hallways and fine perfumes, felt out of place, almost an intruder. But nothing mattered. If what the girl said was true, he'd trade 1,000 lives for that reunion. So, does he talk about me sometimes? He asked, trying to disguise the tremor in his voice. Amelia turned over her shoulder with a shy smile. Sometimes, yeah. He talks about a park, a red swing, and a black car that made a lot of noise. Henry stopped for a second, his face paling. The red swing, he murmured. It was the same one from the backyard of the Upper East Side house, where Lucas disappeared. A chill ran through his body, and he felt his eyes fill with tears. Oh God, it's him. It has to be him. The girl didn't fully understand the magnitude of it, but she watched him with curiosity and a certain affection. There was something in her eyes he'd never seen before, faith. As they walked, Henry tried to contain the urge to run. And how did your mom find him? He asked in a hesitant tone. Amelia thought for a bit. Mom said he showed up alone one rainy day. She brought him home because he was cold and hungry. The childish voice was pure, but each word resonated heavily in the man's memory. He clenched his fists, imagining his son lost, soaked, begging for help. And she never tried to find his parents, he insisted. The girl shook her head. He said he didn't have anyone anymore, that God sent him to us. Henry looked away, holding back the tears. God or fate? He thought with a mix of gratitude and suspicion. The path narrowed, the streets darker. At every corner, Henry's stomach tightened. He looked around, trying to memorize every detail, as if the surroundings could give him clues. The girl pointed to a little house with peeling blue windows. It's there, she said innocently. Henry stopped for a moment and took a deep breath. His legs trembled, and the air seemed scarce. His heart pounded in his throat. Lucas, if it's you, he murmured. Amelia, noticing his nervousness, took his hand. Everything's going to be okay, sir, I promise. That simple gesture, born from a child's heart, held him by a thread. When Amelia pushed the gate, the sharp creak cut through the alley's silence. Claire, the mother, was in the living room. Her gaze met Henry's, and for a second, the world seemed to freeze. The woman's eyes widened, and her forced smile betrayed deep fear. Good afternoon, Henry said with a controlled, almost cold voice. I think my son might be here. Claire stood still. Then she let out a nervous laugh. Your son here? You're mistaken, sir. Amelia, confused, intervened. But Mom, it's the boy. Before she could finish, her mother turned sharply with a look that chilled the little one's blood. Amelia, go inside now. Henry took a step forward. Please, I just want to see. I just need to look him in the eyes. If I'm wrong, I'll leave. Claire crossed her arms, breathing deeply. There's no boy here. Leave. The tension grew with every word. The girl, on the verge of tears, looked at both without understanding. Mom, I'm not lying. The boy lives here, I swear. Claire pushed her inside forcefully, shouting, Shut up, Amelia. The voice echoed through the whole house. Henry stood still, dominated by indignation and pain. In that instant, he recognized in her the look of someone hiding something, a heavy, dark secret. Why are you lying? He asked with wet eyes. What are you hiding? Claire kept her tone firm, but sweat ran down her forehead. Don't make up stories, sir. Go take care of your own life. Henry took a step back, his throat tight. The girl cried behind the half-opened door, whispering, Sorry, sir, sorry. Before he could say anything, Claire advanced and slammed the door shut, the bang echoing through the alley. Henry stood there, motionless, staring at the closed wood in front of him. His chest rose and fell desperately, and he murmured to himself, She's lying. She's hiding my son. With eyes full of tears and a shattered heart, Henry stepped back, still hearing the girl's sobs on the other side of the door. The wind blew hard, and the poster he held escaped, flying down the narrow street. He caught it with difficulty, and when he looked at Lucas's photo again, he felt a vow born within him. I'll come back, even if it costs me my life. On the other side, Amelia, trembling, held the same poster he'd dropped. Her eyes, full of tears, reflected something new. For the first time, she began to doubt her own mother. The sound of the door closing still echoed in Amelia's head as she ran up the stairs, her heart racing. Tears blurred her face, and her breathing came in gasps. She pushed open the bedroom door, and inside, the silence was too heavy. Dimness covered the small space, the only light coming from a broken window where the wind made the tattered curtains dance. That's when she saw him. Lucas, sitting in a corner with a notebook on his lap and scared eyes, looked up. The boy seemed fragile, thin, with messy hair and pencil-stained hands. "Amelia," he murmured doubtfully, as if fearing discovery. "Lucas," she exclaimed in a loud whisper, running toward him. The hug was instant, desperate. "It's all okay, I swear," the boy said, trying to console her without understanding the tears. "Mom got mad at that man downstairs," Amelia replied, sobbing. Lucas lowered his head, pressing the notebook to his chest. "I heard him shout my name, and then she told me to come here and not make a sound." The fear in his voice cut the air. "But Lucas, that man knows you. He said he's your dad." The boy's eyes opened wide, and for a second, the silence seemed to swallow the room. "My dad," he repeated with a trembling voice. "I dreamed about him last night. I dreamed he was calling me and saying he was coming for me." A chill ran down Amelia's back. Then it was true, she thought aloud, taking his hands. Lucas shook his head, confused. "Mom said my dad died, that no one else would want me." The words hurt, though he didn't fully understand. Amelia pressed her lips, trying to distinguish lie from truth. "She lies sometimes," she said quietly, looking at the door. "But why lie about that?" The question floated in the air like a ghost no one wanted to face. The sound of Claire's footsteps climbing the stairs made them look at each other terrified. "Quick, lie down," whispered Amelia, pulling Lucas toward the bed. He covered himself, pretending to sleep. The knob turned slowly, and the woman entered with a forced smile. "My loves, what was all that crying?" Her voice sounded too sweet to be sincere. Amelia wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Nothing, Mom, just a nightmare." Claire approached, stroked her daughter's hair, and glanced at Lucas. "Everything okay, dear?" she asked in a theatrical tone. The boy pretended to wake, murmuring a "yes, Mom," almost inaudible. "Good," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't want any more problems, understood? That man is dangerous. Promise me you won't talk to him." Amelia felt her heart tighten, but he seemed nice. "Mom," he was really crying. Claire knelt and held the girl's face firmly. "There are things you don't understand yet, my love. The world is cruel. Sometimes people pretend to be good." Her eyes shone, but not with emotion, with fear. It was as if she carried a secret capable of destroying everything. "Now sleep." "Yes. Tomorrow will be a new day." When Claire left and closed the door, the silence returned, dense, suffocating. Amelia turned to Lucas, her gaze fixed on the shadow covering half his face. "Do you believe what she said?" the boy asked. She hesitated, drawing something in the air with her finger. "She saved me, but she also hid me. I don't know what's right." The girl took a deep breath, holding back tears. "I think she's lying, Lucas. I feel it in here." And she touched her chest. There was something pure in that gesture, and childish intuition stronger than 1,000 proofs. For the first time, Amelia didn't recognize the woman she called Mom. The night fell heavy over the small room, and the distant sound of sirens mixed with the contained cries of the two children. Amelia stayed awake, watching Lucas sleep, trying to understand why someone would hide a child like that. Outside, the wind battered the broken window, and she whispered to herself, "I'm going to find out what's going on, even if I have to lose everything." The following days dragged like an endless nightmare. Amelia no longer saw her mother the same way. Every smile seemed fake, every caress calculated. She watched her in silence, paying attention to everything. The whispered calls, the hidden papers, the tense glances Claire threw out the window. At night, when the house fell into dimness, the girl heard her mother pacing, opening and closing drawers, as if trying to hide something that shouldn't be seen. Lucas, quiet, seemed to feel the same unease. "Why is she always scared?" he whispered one night. Amelia replied softly, "Because she lied to someone, and when you lie, fear never sleeps." That morning, Claire left in a hurry, bag over her shoulder, eyes full of worry. "I'm going to the store. Stay calm and don't touch anything," she said before closing the door. The sound of the lock was the signal Amelia had been waiting for. Her heart raced, her hands sweated. "She's hiding something, Lucas. I have to know what." The boy, scared, tried to stop her. "If she finds out, she'll get mad at you." Amelia took a deep breath. "I can handle it, but I can't handle living with lies anymore. Then she started searching, opening cabinets, lifting rugs, checking corners she'd never noticed. Her mother's room smelled of perfume mixed with must and guilt. The curtains blocked almost all the light, leaving the atmosphere gloomy. In a corner, a floorboard was loose, a small detail, but enough to spark a watchful girl's curiosity. Amelia knelt, slipped her fingers into the crack, and lifted the wood carefully, revealing a dark, dusty space. Inside was an old notebook with a torn cover, wrapped in a faded handkerchief. She took it out cautiously, as if holding something sacred and forbidden at the same time. "What is this?" she murmured. Lucas approached hesitantly, his gaze fixed on those yellowish pages. When she opened the notebook, a chill ran through her body. Pages full of notes, names, dates, figures scribbled alongside. "What a weird thing," she murmured, frowning. It didn't look like a diary or a shopping list. The letters were quick, nervous, as if written in haste. She ran her finger over a blurry name and kept flipping, trying to understand. Why would she hide this? She asked more to herself than to Lucas. The boy, confused, just watched. There was something dark in that notebook, something that made the room's air heavier, as if the words had a life of their own. Until, amid so many senseless lines, something caught her attention. A name, Lucas H. The girl's heart stopped for an instant. She looked at the boy beside her, and then at the paper. "Look, your name is here." Her voice came out trembling, between surprise and fear. Lucas approached with wide eyes. "My name? What?" Amelia shook her head, not knowing what to say. "I don't know, but this isn't normal. Why would Mom write that?" The silence that followed was suffocating. The letters of the name seemed to glow under the dim light, like a sign impossible to ignore. The girl's heart seemed about to burst. Everything spun around her. Fear mixed with confusion. "There's something wrong, Lucas. I feel it," she whispered. He looked at her uneasy, not understanding. "What are we going to do?" he asked. Amelia closed the notebook forcefully, as if wanting to silence the secrets kept there. "We have to find that man. He'll know what this means." There was uncertainty in her voice, but also a new kind of bravery born from the need to uncover the truth. Though she didn't fully understand what the notebook represented, she knew it was the key to something much bigger. With trembling hands, she tore a page from the notebook and copied everything she could. Lucas's name, the nearby dates, and the details she remembered. The sound of the pencil scratching the paper was like thunder in the house's silence. Lucas watched her quietly, his eyes full of tears. "If she comes back and finds you, she won't find me," Amelia interrupted. "We have to try." When she finished, she put the page in her dress pocket and returned the notebook to its hiding place, covering it with the board. Her breathing was short, her heart pounding her chest. "Come on, Lucas, I have to find him now." As she opened the door, the afternoon sun blinded her for a moment. The hot wind hit her face, drying the tears still falling. She looked at the sky, and for the first time, felt something like destiny. "I'm going to find him," she said to Lucas, squeezing his hand, "even if I get lost forever." The sun was starting to hide behind the rooftops when Amelia ran without looking back. The hot air cut her throat, and her heart beat to the rhythm of each step. The folded page in her pocket scratched her skin, as if the paper had life, pulsing with her fear. Lucas had stayed behind, watching her from the window with a lost gaze and trembling hands. "Be careful," he murmured, not knowing if she could hear him. But the girl didn't stop. There was an urgency inside her, an impulse she didn't even understand. All she knew was she had to find that man with sad eyes, the man who cried for the boy on the poster. The neighborhood seemed bigger than before, the streets endless. Amelia tripped, got up, and kept going. At every corner, she asked strangers if they knew where the man with the black car lived. Many just shook their heads, others looked at her with pity. Time seemed to mock her, dragging the minutes as if testing her. When night finally began to fall, an old man sweeping the sidewalk pointed the way. "The mansion at the end of the avenue. That's where the guy who puts up posters lives." Amelia thanked him and ran off, her heart so strong it seemed to fill the silent streets. Henry's mansion appeared ahead, imposing and sad at the same time. The yellowish lights on the facade reflected on the iron gate, and the air smelled of loneliness. Amelia stopped, doubting for an instant. What if he doesn't believe me? The fear almost made her turn back, But the thought of Lucas and that name in the notebook gave her strength. She rang the bell once, twice, 3 times. A man in a dark suit appeared and looked her up and down. "What's a girl like you doing here alone at this hour?" The little one took a deep breath. "I need to see the owner of the house. It's important, it's about his son." The butler hesitated, but there was something so sincere in her gaze that he finally opened the gate. When Henry entered the living room, his face bore the exhaustion of someone who'd lived a year between despair and hope. Seeing the girl, it took him a second to recognize her. "You're the girl from the poster." Amelia nodded, her eyes full of tears. "Sir, I found something." With trembling hands, she pulled the crumpled paper from her pocket. "This was hidden in my mom's room. I don't understand what it means, but his name is here." Henry took the page, and upon seeing Lucas's name written there, he felt the world spin. The letters seemed to move under his blurred vision. "Where did you find this?" he asked with a broken voice. "In an old notebook under the floor," she replied, crying. "I swear I'm not lying. I just felt I had to show it to you." Henry sat down, pressing the paper to his chest. Those notes, names, dates, figures, they formed a sinister pattern. This is too serious." His hands trembled. He recognized 2 names from the missing children posters he'd put up months ago. The pain turned to rage, and the rage to fear. "She's involved in this," he murmured almost voicelessly. Amelia looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before answering. "It means your mother might be mixed up in something terrible." Tears ran down the girl's face. "No, she can't be bad." Her voice came out between sobs, like a plea denying reality. Henry approached and took her small hands in his. "Listen, dear, sometimes evil doesn't wear a monster's mask. Sometimes it disguises itself as love." His gaze was sweet, but loaded with deep sadness. "The important thing is you had courage. You saved my son, and you could save many other kids too." Amelia shook her head, not fully understanding. "I just wanted her to be good," she said quietly. "I know, my girl. I wanted the world to be fair too," he replied with a broken voice. A heavy silence filled the room. Outside, the wind blew, slowly moving the curtains. Henry stood up, wiped his face, and looked at Lucas's portrait hanging on the wall. "Where is he now?" he asked. "In my house, in the room." She told him to hide. The girl's voice was a confession and a plea for help at the same time. Henry took a deep breath, picked up the phone, and made a quick call with a voice firm like he hadn't had in a long time. "Get the car ready. We're going now." Amelia watched him with a mix of admiration and fear, not knowing what would happen next, but feeling deep down that nothing would be the same. He knelt in front of her and said tenderly, "You did the right thing, little one. Now leave it to me. I promise no one will hurt you again." Amelia, crying, hugged him tightly. A pure hug from someone giving the world to a stranger and at the same time finding a new home without realizing it. Henry closed his eyes and for an instant felt destiny aligning. "Let's go for my son," he whispered. And when he stood, something in his gaze had changed. It was no longer the look of a broken man, but of a father ready to face hell for the life of the child who still waited for him. The night fell over the city like a thick veil, hiding secrets and setting the stage for something no one could foresee. Henry's car cut through the streets, its headlights piercing the darkness, the engine's sound like the echo of an accelerated heart. In the passenger seat, Amelia clutched the piece of paper between her fingers, staring into the void with eyes full of tears. "Is everything going to be okay?" she asked with a trembling voice. Henry looked at her with tenderness and determination. "Yes, I promise." The words came out firm, but in his chest burned a mix of fear and hope. Between love and the anger growing with every mile, the car stopped a few blocks from the house. Henry turned off the engine, took a deep breath, and observed around. "We're going to go in without making noise, okay?" he said quietly. The girl nodded, holding her breath. The night air was heavy, as if even the wind awaited what was about to happen. They crossed the rusted gate, walking carefully over the damp ground, and a distant dog's bark made the moment even tenser. The house was almost dark, only a weak light escaping from the bedroom window. Henry stopped, closed his eyes for an instant, and whispered, "Please, let me find him. Just one more time." They entered through the back door. The creak of the hinges echoed, and Amelia put a finger to her lips, asking for silence. The hallway was narrow, and the smell of must and old food impregnated the air. With each step, Henry's heart beat harder. "It's there," whispered the girl, pointing to the bedroom door. He approached, trembling hands, and slowly turned the knob. The room was in dimness, and for an instant, time seemed to stop. On the bed, a child slept curled up, his face half covered by a torn sheet. Henry took a hesitant step forward, as if fearing to wake from a dream. "Lucas," he murmured. The boy opened his eyes slowly, confused, blinking at the approaching figure. "Son, it's me," Henry said with a broken voice. Lucas looked at him for a second, and then something shone in his eyes. Recognition. "Dad?" he whispered, barely audible. Henry fell to his knees, tears running uncontrollably. "Oh God, my son." He hugged him tightly, like someone fearing time would snatch him away again. Their cries mixed, and even Amelia cried, standing with her hands on her chest. "I knew it was him," she murmured, smiling through tears. But the moment of relief lasted little. A noise in the living room made them freeze. Heavy, strong footsteps. The sound of a key turning in the lock. Henry signaled Amelia to hide behind him and hugged Lucas. The front door opened, and Claire's voice echoed cold and cutting. "Amelia." Silence was the only answer. Seconds later, another male voice, deep, threatening, boomed in the house. "There's someone here." The air seemed to vanish. Henry looked around desperately, trying to think fast. Amelia tugged his arm, trembling. "It's the man who always comes to see Mom," she whispered. Henry understood immediately. That was the accomplice. The bedroom door burst open, and Claire appeared with blazing eyes. "What do you think you're doing here?" she shouted, her voice a mix of fury and desperation. Amelia stepped forward. "Mom, what's going on? Why did that man come? And why was his name in your notebook?" The silence became immediate. Claire took a deep breath, her gaze wavering between her daughter and Henry. "You want to know? Then you'll hear it all." Her voice came out firm, loaded with something between guilt and cynicism. "I work with people who take kids. Sometimes we sell them. Other times we ask for money for them. But I couldn't hand over Lucas." The air turned dense. Henry paled, and Amelia brought her hands to her mouth, unable to believe what she heard. "Mom, are you lying?" the girl stammered with a broken voice. Claire shook her head slowly. "No, daughter, it's the truth. He was just one more, another case. But when I saw him so small, so lost, I couldn't do it. I brought him home. He became part of us." Henry stepped forward, dominated by horror and rage. "You kidnapped him. You destroyed my life." Claire looked at him with teary but cold eyes. "And you? What do you know about losing? You have everything, and still you lost him because you trusted too much." Amelia cried uncontrollably. "Mom, why did you do that? Why with him?" The woman approached, trying to touch her daughter's face, but Amelia backed away. "Because I had no other choice," Claire murmured. "The people I work with don't forgive. And when he showed up, I saw a chance to start over, to have a real family." Henry shouted, his voice breaking the silence. "You call that love? You stole a child, and now try to justify it with feelings." Claire closed her eyes, her voice trembling. "I love that boy more than anything. And yet I know love doesn't erase what I did." The man behind her stepped forward impatiently. "Enough drama. Let's end this." Amelia grabbed her mother's arm desperately. "Don't let him hurt us, please." Claire took a deep breath, her face tense, her gaze lost between her daughter and the accomplice. "There's no turning back now, my love," she said quietly. Henry, with Lucas in his arms, trembled between rage and compassion. "You could have asked for help. You could have told the truth," he said with a choked voice. Claire looked away, murmuring, "The truth never saved me from anything, Henry. It only condemned me." The silence that followed seemed to scream. Amelia, full of horror, stepped back, feeling her legs give way. Claire cried now, but there was no innocence in her tears. "I just wanted a son," she whispered. "I just wanted to love someone who wouldn't leave me." Henry looked at her with deep sadness. "And for that, you destroyed families." Her gaze hardened again, an armor of guilt and desperation. "Don't try to understand what I did." Claire's scream broke the heavy air of the house. "Get out now." She pushed Amelia and Lucas forcefully, her voice trembling, eyes overflowing with desperation. "You don't want to see this." The children stumbled in the hallway without understanding, crying, while their mother slammed the door shut and barred it from inside. On the other side, The sound of quick footsteps and moving furniture filled the air with panic. Amelia clung to her heart-brother, her face covered in tears. Lucas, what is she going to do? He, pale, squeezed her hands. We have to help Dad. The girl's breathing cut between sobs. But what if it's too late? Inside the room, Henry tried to keep his voice firm. Claire, please, listen to me. It doesn't have to end like this. The woman trembled, tears falling uncontrollably, but the man beside her, the accomplice, wasn't listening anymore. Enough words, he growled, pulling a knife from his pocket and pointing it at the millionaire's chest. You've had too much luck so far. Henry stepped back, his gaze fixed on the blade gleaming under the dim light. Think it through. This won't erase what you did. He tried to reason, but the man just smiled cruelly. It'll help me sleep better tonight. He advanced quickly like a predator. The sound of the fight spread through the whole house. Henry tried to dodge, pushed a chair, but was grazed on the arm. Claire, help me, he shouted, his voice cutting the air. She backed away with eyes full of terror, unable to move. Blood began to drip down his shirt sleeve. You shouldn't have come back, the attacker shouted, trying to reach him again. Outside, Amelia heard the noise and jumped up. We can't let them kill him, Lucas. The boy breathed fast, his body shaking. And if he hurts us? She looked at him firmly, eyes full of tears but loaded with courage. I'm not going to let that happen. Without thinking, Amelia shouldered the door until it gave. No, Claire shouted, but it was too late. The children burst into the room. The man, surprised, turned his head, and that second of distraction was all Henry needed. Get out of here, he shouted. But Amelia ran toward the attacker, jumped on his back, and tried to wrench the knife from his hand. Let go, she screamed with all her strength. Lucas did the same, grabbing the man's arm and biting his wrist. The knife fell to the floor, sliding to Henry's feet, who, bloodied, took the chance to stand and run to the window. In a desperate leap, he broke the glass and threw himself outside, rolling on the backyard ground. The impact sound echoed like an explosion in the night. Claire screamed his name, running after him while the accomplice stumbled furiously, trying to free himself from the children. I'm going to kill you both, he roared. But Amelia pushed him with all her might, making him crash into the wall. Claire pulled his arm. Let's go. The police might come. The two ran out the back door, panting, chasing the wounded millionaire who limped toward the gate. The moon lit the backyard like a farewell stage, and then sirens cut the air. The sound of patrol cars approached in waves, with red and blue lights reflecting on the house windows. Henry fell to his knees in the middle of the yard, exhausted, while Claire and the accomplice stopped, blinded by the headlights. Police, drop your weapons, a firm voice shouted. In seconds, armed men surrounded the place. The accomplice tried to run but was taken down with a blow. Claire stood still, arms up, face covered in tears. Amelia and Lucas watched everything from the porch, hugged, trembling between fear and relief. Their hearts still beat like runaway drums. Claire looked at her daughter one last time, her face devastated. Amelia, forgive me. The girl cried, her chest heaving. Mom, why? Why did you do all this? The woman didn't answer, just lowered her head as the police handcuffed her. Henry, with his shoulder bloodied, approached slowly and put a hand on the girl's head. It's over, he whispered, panting. You saved our lives. The patrol lights reflected in Amelia's tears as she watched them take her mother away. Her cry filled the air, a pure, broken sound mixing pain, relief, and the cruel certainty that nothing would be the same. As the police took Claire and the accomplice away, Amelia stayed silent, staring into nothing. The night wind moved her hair, and the distant siren sound faded little by little. Henry knelt in front of her and Lucas, exhausted, hugging them both at once. You were the light in the darkness, he said with a choked voice. Without you, I never would have found my son. Amelia sobbed without strength to respond. That night, amid ruins and tears, the innocent love of two children had faced evil and defeated it. The following days dawned quieter. The house where it all happened was now empty, surrounded only by the memory of the screams and the rain that fell that night. Henry took Amelia and Lucas to the mansion, and for the first time in a long time, that place had the sound of life again. Windows opened, fresh air entered, and the sunlight seemed to clean the shadows of the past. Amelia looked at everything with a lost gaze, not knowing where she belonged. "This place is too big for me," she murmured, sitting on the couch. Henry smiled, knelt in front of her, and said, "A home isn't measured by its size, little one. It's measured by love, and you brought love back to this house." Henry's wounds healed slowly, but his heart started to mend faster. Lucas didn't separate from Amelia. They played together in the backyard like siblings reuniting after a war. Sometimes silence filled the place, and the girl stayed still, looking at the sky, remembering her mother. Henry watched her from afar with tenderness. "You miss her, don't you?" he asked once, sitting beside her on the swing. "Yes, despite everything that happened." He nodded. A daughter's love doesn't erase easily, but sometimes loving is also forgiving what you don't understand. Amelia rested her head on his shoulder without saying anything. That gesture was enough. The news spread fast. Claire had been sentenced, and the accomplice imprisoned for a long list of crimes. Amelia heard the outcome in silence. When Henry hung up the phone, she only asked, "Will she be okay?" He hesitated before answering. "She'll pay for what she did, but maybe in the end, she'll find peace." That same day, the official confirmation came. Claire had lost custody of her daughter forever. Amelia stayed quiet for a moment, her gaze distant, then whispered, "I just want her to know I still love her." Henry felt a lump in his throat and hugged her tightly. "And that's why you're special, because even hurt, you still know how to love." Those words hung in the air like a promise of rebirth. Days turned into weeks, and life took on another rhythm. Lucas smiled again. Amelia discovered what it was to feel safe, and Henry, for the first time, felt time was no longer his enemy. One golden morning, he got a call from social services. "Provisional custody of the girl has been granted to you," the voice on the other end said. He stayed silent for a moment, moved. Then he took a deep breath and replied, "She was already part of my family before that." When he hung up, he looked out the window and saw Amelia and Lucas playing among the flowers. A sincere smile appeared on his face, a smile the world hadn't seen in a year. That afternoon, he called Amelia to talk. She arrived shyly, wiping her hands on her dress. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked, scared. Henry laughed, shaking his head. "On the contrary, you did everything right." He took her hands and looked into her eyes. "Amelia, I've thought about it a lot, and if you want, I'd like you to be my daughter." The silence that followed was only broken by the birdsong in the garden. The girl was breathless, her eyes full of tears. "Your daughter," she repeated, almost unbelieving. "Yes, for real." Henry smiled with a choked voice. "You taught me that family is who chooses to love you, and today I choose you." Tears ran down Amelia's face, and she threw herself into his arms, crying, "I choose you too, Dad." The sound of those words made the world stop for an instant. Lucas ran toward them, hugging them both, and the three stayed there united, as if time had finally stopped hurting. The wind blew softly, moving the garden leaves, and the sun high in the sky illuminated the new life born among them. No wealth, no luxury, no fortune would ever have as much value as that moment. Henry looked at them and thought, "Pain destroyed me, but a girl's love rebuilt me." Months later, during the adoption ceremony, the judge asked Amelia, "Do you want to keep your last name or change it?" She looked at Henry and Lucas and replied with a smile full of shine, "I want the same as theirs." And when the document was signed, a new chapter began, not of pain, but of redemption. Henry lifted his daughter in his arms and said, "Now we're a complete family." The girl hugged him tightly while Lucas laughed, spinning around them. And for the first time since the day everything collapsed, Henry felt his heart at peace, because in the end, he discovered that the deepest miracles don't come from the sky, but from a child's love. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Leave a like to support us and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. That helps us keep creating the best for you. Until next time.